Thank you, Gina. All right, well, welcome to this month's Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meeting. Thank you all for your attendance. I think I can see everyone on my screen. I've been out for a couple months, so if I'm a little rusty, just roll with it. I just want to thank Keith and Ian and Allison for covering for me in various capacities while I was out. Ian, you survived the curse of the substitute chair very well, so thank you for that. It is nerve-wracking, but you handled it with the plume. So thank you all for your assistance. I am going to go with roll call. Has roll call been done and we are good to go there?
Gina, are you set on roll call?
Excuse me?
Are you set on roll call? Do you need us to do roll call?
I've normally not done roll call. It's always been
okay.
Ian that has done it.
I'll do it right now.
I can do it.
Go carry on, Cindy. I think we're good. I'll be sure that we've chronicled it.
All right, thank you very much. We have a full meeting today. Next on the agenda, opening up for public comment. And if there is any public comment, I don't think there is any, but Lynn or Rachel can confirm, or Gina can.
So if you are here for public comment, please raise your hand as an attendee, and that will be our clue. And it does not look like we have anyone who is on the phone, so we should be clear. So right now, no hands raised. I think we're clear to proceed, Chair.
Great. Thank you so much. Oh, before I go any further, right before the meeting, Rachel sent out an updated agenda that has a lot more language on there with sample motions. I just want to make sure the committee, you all know that and have the updated agenda to follow today, because we have a few motions that we might be entertaining, and it's all written out because they are lengthy motions. So just make sure you have the updated agenda. Next, everyone on the committee got a copy of the August minutes. So I'll put it out there. If someone wants to put a motion to approve the August minutes, and we'll go through that process.
I move to approve the August minutes.
I'll second.
Great, so we have Matt Martino moving to approve with a second from Kathy. Any discussion or any questions about the minutes? All right, I don't see any hands raised, so I'll go through. Let's see, what is the best way to do this? Everyone has their camera on, so I think what I'll do is for approval, please say aye or raise your hand, and then I'll list your names so it can be documented in the record. So for those in agreement to approve the August minutes, please raise your hand. Matt Martino is an aye. Kathy Austin, aye. Heather Simmons, aye. Allison is an aye. Ian Schmidt, is your hand, okay. Ian is an aye. Keith Wooden.
Cindy, I was gone, so I need to abstain from that.
Yes, okay. And Joanna.
Minutes.
Yeah, the same is true for me. I need to abstain since I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, and I think I'm the last one, and I wasn't at the meeting even though I read the minutes, so I'm going to abstain from the vote. I think that's everybody. Great, thank you very much. All right, here we go. The fun begins. I've got so many notes here, it's crazy. We have 2 public hearings coming up, and I believe, is it Rachel that you're going to do the intro, and then we will take the steps to open the public hearing. So Rachel, you have the floor.
So we have today the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report. And those are conducted every year for the purposes of our CDBG funding. HUD requests that we give a report on all the accomplishments that the CDBG funds were able to do. So each of you should have received that with your agenda. It's also posted on the Affordable Housing Program website. And we assisted over 3,000 with services in 2020. That's a little actually less than 2019, primarily because those that we served with CDBG funding through our partner organizations had limitations. They had a lot of COVID restrictions on how many people they could help get through their doors. And so we're going to see less people just based on the fact that less people can sleep in Bethlehem in beds and sleep in loft Cascade Youth and Family beds. So there's a slight decrease in number. It's not super great. However, we were also able to, get a lot of services out there for the first time, the Shepherd's House warming shelter. So those are some of the highlights that we accomplished, in addition to all the many great works that we did in changing some of the codes to get more affordable housing developed in the near future. Any questions?
Kathy, did you have your hand up or were you just? Okay. I just wanted to make a statement with this last year. The city of Bend was able to leverage over $20 million with CDBG and our own affordable housing funds for 2020. That leveraging that dollar amount is phenomenal. So thank you, Councillor Campbell, for being a part of that and listening to our funding requests, and the committee for all your work. I think that's just amazing. That's just huge. So I just want to make a point of that.
Do you need a motion?
Well, I need to open the public hearing. So at this point,
Sorry.
that's okay. That's all right. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Oh, maybe I did that because you just did the staff presentation, correct, Rachel?
You probably should still say the hearing is open.
Yes, the hearing is open. I just need more caffeine today. Okay, yes, the public hearing is open. Rachel just did the staff presentation, and now is the time to open it up for public comment. So I'm going to look on my screen for the attendees, and I'm going to look for any raised hands if anyone here has any public comment, and if so, if you could keep your comments to 2 minutes. I think Lynn has volunteered to be the time watch person if needed, but I am looking at the attendees to see if there's any public comment from those in attendance.
Doesn't appear to be any hands up, Chair.
I am seeing the same thing, so thank you. So with no additional public comment, the hearing is closed. I will close the public hearing for that. And at this point, open it up for any committee discussion. Does the committee, after reviewing the information, is there any discussion within the committee? If so, you can virtually raise your hand or do the blue hand on the screen. Not everybody at once. Okay, I'm not seeing any discussion from the committee. So if you refer to your updated agenda, I just want to make a correction for that sample motion. If someone reads that aloud, please be sure to say the year 2020 and not 2019. That we just caught that right the last minute. So just make a note of that. And is there anyone who would like to take that next step?
I move to approve the 2020 Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report.
A second.
Great, so Kathy made the motion, Heather Simmons seconded. Any additional discussion? Thank you. I'm not seeing anyone for additional discussion. So I'm going to take a vote for all in favor of adopting the motion as stated. Please raise your hand and I will call your name for the record. So all in favor, please raise your hand. So Joanna Gardner is an aye. Matt Martino is an aye. Keith Wooden, aye. Kathy Austin, aye. Heather Simmons, aye. Allison Hohengarten, aye. Ian Schmidt is an aye, and Cindy King is an aye. So that appears to be unanimous. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to read all that material. So next on the agenda, I believe, Rachel, is the amended annual action plan public hearing. So let me open the public hearing, and then Rachel will do the staff presentation for us. Thank you.
So the amended annual action plans are from 2019 and 2021. After the deliberations we had in August, the Council on Aging of Central Oregon decided not to pursue the funding that was offered them. Therefore, we will be funding Core Community Land Trust purchase of the Poplar property for their development of homes. We awarded, I believe, maximum of an additional $100,000. So that was $350,000. In addition, we went back to HUD and asked about the remaining 2020 dollars that we had and how we could spend that. Because initially, remember, any additional funds from 2020 were to go to the Shepherd's House warming shelter. HUD said that that funding, despite entering the year of 2021, was still allowed to go over the public services cap. And so those funds can continue to go to Shepherd's House for their winter months to maintain operations. And we don't need to do an amendment for the 2020 plan anymore. So these motions in front of you are just to approve the remaining dollars from 2019's annual action plan and the 2021 dollars that were not allocated to the purchase for Core Community Land Trust development on Poplar. Any questions?
I'm glad we put those contingencies in place. It made things a little bit easier. Well
They
done.
definitely did.
Absolutely, yes. At this point, I'm going to open up for public comment. So I've got my screen open to the attendees, and I'm going to look for any raised hands for those in attendance.
I don't see any raised hands, Chair. I think you're clear to proceed.
Thank you. Thank you. So at this time, we will close the public hearing. Any additional discussion by the committee, any comments or anything? No? Excellent. So I do have a question. And maybe Elizabeth can help. For these motions, do we need to do these separately, or I'm thinking we do them separately. So we're going to do a vote for the 2019 amendments and a vote on the 2021 amendments per the motion stated, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Great, thank you. All right, so who would like to take the next step with a sample motion for the, let's do the 2019 amendments since those are first.
I'll do it, or I'll
Thank
give
you,
it a shot. I move to recommend council approval of the amendments to the 2019 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and authorize staff to take all necessary action to fund the approved projects, including signing loan agreements and related documents.
Second.
Thank you. So Allison stated the motion, Matt Martino seconded it. Any additional discussion? All right, we're going to go to a vote. So all in favor, please raise your hand and I will call your names out for the record. Joanna Gardner is an aye. Matt Martino, aye. Keith Wooden, aye. Kathy Austin, aye. Heather Simmons, an aye. Allison Hohengarten, an aye. Ian Schmidt, an aye. And Cindy King is an aye. So unanimous. Thank you so much. All right. How about for 2021 amendments?
I'll jump in. I move to recommend the council approval of amendments to the 2021 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and authorize staff to take all necessary actions to fund the approved projects, including signing loan agreements and related documents.
And I'll second.
Thank you. So Matt made the motion. Keith Wooden seconded it. Any additional comments? Ian, you had your hand up, but I'm thinking maybe you were just going to second it.
I was trying to beat Kathy to a second.
That's tough to do. Well, if there's no additional discussion, we will take it to a vote, and all in favor, please raise your hand and I'll call your names. Joanna Gardner is an aye. Matt Martino, aye. Keith Wooden, aye. Kathy Austin, aye. Heather Simmons, aye. Allison Hohengarten, aye. Ian Schmidt, aye. And Cindy King, aye. Great, thank you. Thank you very much for all that time and effort into that project. All right, let me switch my notes. I don't miss anything. Lynn, the next thing on the agenda is change of use request for Housing Works. And Lynn, I think you have the intro for that. So you have the floor.
Yeah, so you all know by this point that if there are significant changes to any of the projects that you've funded, we are bringing folks back to make sure that you all are in alignment with what they're planning. And in this case, we have David Brandt, the Executive Director for Housing Works here, who has a request of change of use for you, moving the funds that were awarded from one location to another. So with that, David, I think I'll hand it off to you and jump back in if you need me for anything.
Sure, thank you. So you all probably remember last round you awarded Housing Works, I believe it was $900,000 to purchase land from Hayden Homes at the HB 4079 site. Midway through the planning process, Hayden Homes decided they wanted to keep the property, and instead of developing high density units at 60% AMI, they wanted to develop sort of the minimum amount under that statute at 80%, which is what we're required to do. And so we basically exited that project. So we were looking around for some other property, and one site that we had been looking at is a little over an acre at the corner of 27th and Connors, which is right next to a piece of property we already own, and just down the street from a project that we're completing in the next couple months. And so it made sense for us to consolidate the larger piece of property, allow us to build more units, be more flexible. And so we went to the county, and the county appraised the property at, I believe, is $1,090,000. We offered $1,045,000. They tentatively have accepted. And so we are requesting that we be permitted to use that money that we were going to purchase from Hayden to purchase this county site. And that's sort of the gist of it. I'm here, I can answer whatever questions you guys have.
Thank you, David. My question is, since I read real estate contracts a lot, what does tentatively accepted mean? Can you define that for us?
So we have a PSA, a purchase and sale agreement, that has everything but the county exec's signature. I don't know if Christy Bollinger is here. She can kind of tell you the county side of it, but we're ready to sign it.
I think I can speak for the county if that's okay. Just because we've been involved in this, and the county property manager has told me that the commission absolutely intends to sell the parcel to Housing Works. They wanted to make sure that you all said yes before they go ahead and sign on the dotted line. But it's been discussed in public meetings. That's the intent from the county side. I don't see it going sideways, knock on wood, from their end, as long as you all choose to proceed.
I was thinking that might perhaps be part of it, but I wanted to clarify. So Matt, I see your hand raised, and then Councillor Campbell, you'll be after Matt. Thank you. Go ahead, Matt, you have the floor.
Thank you. Quick question for you, David. So you guys are developing a really beautiful piece on Connors right now. And then I believe you have a secondary piece that's going to be in development thereafter. And then this will be a third parcel that's just closer to 27th. Am I correct with that? There's going to be 3 tax lots that Housing Works will be running with.
That's correct. We'll own the entire block face on Connors from Tucson to 27.
And what proposed plans do you have for that third parcel on the corner?
Well, we probably combine it with the second parcel and do and that would make it almost 4 acres, which would allow us to do. We'll still participate with Mosaic. They want to expand their clinic, and so it would be a bigger version of the Connors 1 site, the Connors and Tucson site.
Cool. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Campbell, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am so supportive of this project and so disappointed that the county is requiring any dollars to change hands. Lynn mentioned at our last meeting that with the amount of money that the county wants to take from our affordable housing fund, that amount of money could be turned into 500 homes, thanks to the excellent work of this committee. I just am almost speechless at this. So there, I said it.
Kathy, I see your hand raised. You have the floor.
Yeah, just reacting to what Barb said. Is it a matter of the fact that the county needs to do their due diligence to get those funds? I'm not privy to any of the background information on that, but do they have a legal obligation to get a fair market value from the property?
I don't think they have a legal obligation. I think there was quite a bit of discussion at the Board of Commissioners, and there was one of the commissioners was strongly in favor of just donating the property to Housing Works, but the other 2 were not, and so it was a 2-1 vote to at least see close to appraised value.
Yeah, interesting. Well, thank you for that background. Yeah, I would agree with Barb. Kind of a shame, but I understand. Thank you.
If I may, Cindy, jump in really quickly and just
Yes,
say,
Go ahead.
you all are lining us up for a brief discussion during the staff report about surplus of property and our partnership with the county. So stay tuned, it's coming. So that'll be in staff report. I'd love to talk to you about sort of next steps with our partnership with the county around property surplus. So we can get into a bigger discussion about that also. And
I see a strongly worded letter in our future.
We'll talk later.
Thank you, Lynn. Allison, you have your hand raised. You have the floor.
Thank you. David, will you refresh my memory on what the use of these funds in the purchase? I mean, you said it'll increase the lot size and you have an agreement or an arrangement with Mosaic Medical for them to build a portion on the land, or what is the project? I need a memory refresher.
So if you've ever been out to the current site, the Connors and 27th Street site, or excuse me, Connors and Tucson, it's a 4-story podium building. There's a clinic on the ground floor and then 3 floors of affordable housing.
Okay.
This could look like that. Again, we're not that far into the sort of site design yet, but adding an acre would probably yield at least 35 or 40 additional units, just based on city zoning.
Housing units.
Yeah.
Okay, I got confused because I know that the other property was for housing units, and it sounds like this will now be, the funds will be used for land that will be both housing and a commercial partnership.
Yeah, although this land will go pretty much entirely to housing.
Okay.
It depends how we stack it vertically, but the Mosaic Clinic sort of proposals already sort of ironclad on the middle parcel. So this additional parcel just permit us to add additional housing units.
Okay, and more options because you have more.
Yeah, site flexibility, right? So to maximize the yield.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this property is just contiguous to the project you're working on, and it seems like it's moving along nice and steady, and hopefully that continues. And I hope I didn't jinx it by saying anything, but thank you, David, for that additional information. Sure. Well, that was some good discussion. So there is a sample motion in our agenda for the committee. I just want to make sure we're ready to do that. We'll have additional discussion after that, but that's where we're at with this information. Ian.
I'd like to make a motion.
And would you like to read the proposed motion?
Yep, I will.
Okay, thank
So
you.
just making sure my microphone works.
No,
I move to approve a change of use of the 2021 Affordable Housing Funds awarded to Housing Works from purchasing a parcel of land within the HB 4079 parcel to purchase a parcel of land from Deschutes County on the corner of 27th and Connors Avenue.
I'll second.
Great. So Ian has stated the motion. Kathy Austin has seconded it. Any other additional discussions or questions from the committee?
If there were to be a further negotiations, would the funds come back to us if the land were to perhaps be able to be purchased at a lower rate?
Is that a question to me or to Lynn or?
I know, I was wondering the same thing.
I was gonna guess it's either one or two. Yes.
Do we need to put like a secondary portion on it, or do we just come back if it changes?
What I would suggest is that you go with the motion as stated. This is my recommendation, because if for some reason there was some reimbursement or something like that, which I don't expect, but let's just say, then David and his team would most likely need to identify a new parcel and come back to us and ask for this to get moved again. So I think it would be a new change of use rather than just something else. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt. Any other questions or comments from the committee? All right, I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I will take it to a vote. So those in favor of the change of use request for Housing Works, please raise your hand and I will call your name. Joanna Gardner is an aye. Matt Martino, aye. Kathy Austin, aye. Heather Simmons is an aye. Allison Hohengarten is an aye. Ian Schmidt is an aye. I'm saving Keith for the last. Well, second to last, Keith.
Well, my question is, since obviously I'm related to this deal, do I just abstain? Does that make sense? I think I should.
That makes sense to me.
You're able
Okay.
to abstain. You're also able to disclose the potential conflict. Since this is a recommendation to City Council, you can disclose that you work for the applicant and continue to vote, or you may choose to abstain.
I'll just abstain.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Elizabeth. And Cindy King is an aye. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, David, for being here and explaining that.
Sure.
All right, next on the agenda is a change of use request from Building Partners for Affordable Housing. And my notes say that Rachel is going to intro this to the committee. And Rachel, you have the floor.
I have a presentation to share, but I'm getting a note that I can't share my screen. Oop, nope, never mind, that changed. Thanks, whoever fixed that. All right, can everyone see the Building Partners Woodside Court slide?
Yes.
Okay. So some of you may recall, it's been in front of us a couple times, that in 2016, Building Partners was awarded affordable housing funding and CDBG funding to purchase property off of Woodside Court. And so they are here in front of us today to request a change to what they proposed.
Thank you, Rachel. Do you want me to go over this or are you going to go over that?
Well, I can give a little history. The
Okay.
2016 proposal initially was to purchase Woodside Court, which occurred in December of 2016. Building Partners intended to plot the lots, develop the infrastructure, and assign the Affordable Housing Fund loan to affordable housing developers to develop, sell, or rent homes. The funding was, again, two sources: CDBG funds. It was a $110,000 grant, and affordable housing funds. There were $450,000 that were loaned to Building Partners. The CDBG funds required the homes to be occupied by September 1st of 2023, or funding returned to HUD no later than August 1st of 2023. And the CDBG funds also required homes to go to a household at or below 80% AMI, whereas the Affordable Housing Fund loan terms currently require homes go to a household at or below 80% AMI. So BP or Building Partners would like to change that award to be, they'd like to sell or transfer the property to Hayden Homes for affordable housing development, because, you know, potentially we really need to get moving if we're going to meet those CDBG deadlines. And in addition, they would assign the Affordable Housing Fund loan to Hayden with a possible change of loan terms to adjust any AMI requirements that Hayden might present. So Mandy, if you wanted to talk to kind of why Building Partners is proposing these changes of use.
Thank you. That was a good, very clear rundown of our history since 2016. We have requested funds a couple of times to try to get our project moving forward. And we, just as a recap, we have a volunteer board of all builders. So I think that this project was just a little more than we could accomplish. And we did our very, very, very best to get moving on it. The last couple of years, we've been waiting, maybe a year and a half, we've been waiting for House Bill 2001 to be adopted by the city of Bend. And that was really what we've been waiting on the last year or two. That obviously hasn't happened yet. And we would like to request permission to move forward with Hayden Homes to develop this property. They have, very similar mission of affordable housing that we do. It's still super important to us. And so we wanted to partner with them. They have the manpower, they have the resources, and they can get the really big job done. And as I said, we have a board of all volunteer builders, and then Tim Knope and myself, and we work 100% for COBA as well. So we are also volunteering on this too. So it just became a little more than we could handle with our resources. So we are requesting to partner with Hayden Homes to accomplish this goal.
Do you guys have any questions for Central Oregon Builders Association or Building Partners?
Okay, my screen is changing, but I do see Kathy Allison's hand raised. So Kathy, you have the floor, and I hope to get my screen where I can see everybody.
Okay, great. Great. I actually have two questions. One is even Hayden going to be able to develop this quickly enough to meet that deadline? It's coming up really quick. And two, will they be requesting going up to a higher level, say 120%? And is that even allowed with the funds? Is 80% the maximum number that they can request? I'm not sure who can answer that.
Kathy, I do have, we do have representatives from Hayden Homes on here to help kind of determine what they're going to do. This is, we are waiting, I guess, for your guys' approval before we hammer out all of the details on site plans and how quickly they can move forward. But we do have representatives from Hayden Homes here if Deb or somebody would like to speak to that, or I can.
Well, whoever, yeah, I'm happy. I remember the site plan. I remember the basic overall. I mean, it went through a couple of changes, and you were dealing with the neighborhood groups and their concerns and access, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know if that's all been ironed out and you now have a specific lotting pattern and you can just move with it, and that Hayden already has plans that would fit, or if you have to start from scratch. And knowing that process, I'm concerned about meeting that deadline and getting people into those homes. So
I think the best thing to do, if it's okay, is to hand it over to Deb Flagan and Megan Norris from Hayden Homes. They are here along with Deb. If you need me to move, I think I saw Craig as an attendee also. If you need to move anybody else over, just let me know. And hopefully they can run you through what they are thinking and what's next on this parcel.
Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair King and the members of the committee. My name is Deborah Flagan. I'm Vice President of Hayden Homes. We're honored to be here today, and we appreciate all of your commitments to housing affordability in our community. I wanted to provide some information about Hayden Homes, and I think, Rachel, do you have a presentation to maybe put up? And you can go to the next slide. Thank you. Hayden Homes is a regional builder. We build in 3 different states, in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. We're based here in Central Oregon, and we've been building here for over 30 years. Our business model is specific to studying the area median income in each one of our regions. And we're diligent in figuring out a way to bring a home to market that meets the 100 to 120% area median income, and then we go up from there. Currently, in the area median income in Deschutes County is just over $71,000. And using a 30-year loan at a 5% interest rate, that equates to a homeowner being able to afford about a $350,000 house. We pulled our closings for the last 12 months here in Central Oregon. And the locations that we're currently building in Central Oregon include Bend, Redmond, and Sisters. And we're very proud to state that in the last 12 months, out of the 200 homes that we've built and closed here, that 81% of those were under 120% area median income or below. We then broke it down by city, and specific to Bend, due to the limited land supply and the high land prices, the percentage dropped down to 35%. So still, we were successful in hitting our goal. However, it's much more difficult, as you know, to achieve this in the Bend proper area. Hayden Homes' commitment to affordability goes beyond just our business model. Hayden's father, Hayden Watson, who was our owner, believed that every working family should have the opportunity to own a home. In turn, he started a nonprofit called First Story, which we are delivering our 100th new home this year. And we will be delivering a 30-year non-interest loan to this family. And these homes are built right in the middle of our Hayden Homes communities. In addition, we have a nonprofit. In addition to the nonprofit, we also have contributed over $35 million in charitable contributions over the last 30 years. And most of those have been focused on housing and food-related insecurities in the communities we serve. So we are very excited about the opportunity at Woodside Court, and we feel like we're well suited due to the proven business model and our ongoing commitment to housing affordability that is so desperately needed here in Bend. And tonight we appreciate your consideration. I'm going to hand it over to Megan Norris, who is our Hayden Homes land planning manager, and she's going to discuss the specifics of the proposal.
Good afternoon, committee members. My name is Megan Norris. I am the forward planning manager for Hayden Homes. I am pleased to present our proposal for Woodside Court. Since this project was first proposed in 2016, Bend has seen an unprecedented increase in both land prices and building costs. It is with this lens, as well as our desire to offer homes that are affordable for working families, that we present this proposal to you today. We are proposing 48 to 55 units consisting of single-family homes and possible townhouse units. Our formal request to this committee is to repay the $110,000 in community development block grant funds. The existing affordable home fund loan of $450,000 requires 100% of the total units to be at 80 to 100% AMI. We are formally requesting that we amend this loan so that 40% of the total units are at 80% to 100% AMI and 60% are market rate. We feel this is a fair proposal given the change in market conditions mentioned above. This would consist of 19 to 22 units at 80 to 100% AMI and 29 to 33 units at market rate. We appreciate your time today and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
So my questions are still unanswered. Can I speak?
Yes, go ahead, Kathy.
Lynn, traditionally, I'm a big proponent of letting us go to 120%, but my understanding was our funds can only be used up to 80%. Could you please clarify, because they're saying 80 to 100 and then the market rate, and that's what your answer is going to make a difference as to my comments.
Yeah, so CDBG and Affordable Housing Fund are different. So I just want to point that out. CDBG has that hard stop at 80% AMI, especially for ownership product. Each home using CDBG has to be at 80% AMI or under, which is why Hayden is intending to repay that loan so that that's no longer an issue. For the Affordable Housing Fund, that is capped at 100% of area median income. And that was done, in my understanding, intentionally to allow for mixed income development for things, because CDBG has to be used for just affordable. You can't effectively do a mixed income for sale development because you can't even fund the infrastructure if it's going to benefit a higher income home, if that makes sense. So I'm hugely overgeneralizing here. And so there's a lot of things you can pick apart with what I'm saying. And I know that's what Rachel's doing in her brain right now. But for purposes of this discussion, 80% for CDBG, 100% for Affordable Housing Fund. And so that's the reason for this change of use, is not just selling to a new entity, but also to allow for some of those homes to go above the 100% AMI level if this committee is comfortable with that.
Okay,
Does that help?
That's very helpful. Thank you. So now I understand why they're proposing to repay the CDBG, and that makes sense. I am a little uncomfortable with the proportions that they're proposing and the affordability level for the market rate. It's conceivable because they're townhomes that the market rate will still be pretty reasonable, but I would have hoped to see sort of a more staggered proposal, say a certain number of those market rate being at 120% and going from there. I certainly understand the cost of the infrastructure can't be paid by 100% affordable without more funding coming from some other source, but I'm not really thrilled with the amount of market rate in this particular proposal. I'm just putting it out there. So thank you for that clarification, Ray.
Thank you, Kathy. Ian, you've been incredibly patient. I see your hand raised, and then Matt, you'll be after Ian. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to defer my comment and let Matt go first, if that's possible.
Absolutely. Matt, please go ahead.
I just kind of want to weigh in on this. I like it. This is a diverse project that we can help with. I'm a huge proponent of home ownership. I think that we can kind of knock a bunch of birds out of the air with this one. We can get some affordable units on the ground. We can just transfer the funds to a project that we had been wanting to see get done since, 5 years ago. I mean, 19 to 22 units is still huge for the amount of money from the Affordable Housing Fund that we're looking at, especially since it's funding home ownership. I'm familiar with Hayden's work, and I'm confident that they can get it done. Yeah, I mean, I support this one. Go for it, Ian.
Thank you, Matt. So my question, and this is to the folks presenting and proposing this, in the approximately 5 years, it's really difficult to develop projects, and I certainly understand the limitations of time and staffing. That makes a lot of sense to me. My question is, why should the committee move forward with this as opposed to reopening those funds to any and all folks who would present a proposal for what they would like to do with these funds, and why should this move forward without those funds being made generally available and competitive? Thank you.
Thanks. I'll take a crack at that, Ian, and Deb, chime in if you have anything else to add. But Hayden has a proven track record in the community and in Central Oregon in general. As Deb mentioned, over 80% of our homes in Deschutes County in the last 12 months, we're at 120% AMI or lower, a little bit lower in Bend, but we're confident that we have the housing product and the type to do it. We have the staffing, like you mentioned, to do it as well. We're excited about the opportunity to offer affordability to our working families in Central Oregon.
I'll follow up and say I really appreciate Hayden's work in the community, and I think Hayden does make a really great product. There's a bunch of them in the neighborhood I live in that are new, and I really like them, but that wasn't the question I was getting at. The question I'm getting at is, why should these funds be handed over in a non-competitive process as opposed to opening it back up to anyone who would come and want to compete for these funds? Thank you.
Be able to interject if that's okay. The funds have been spent. So we're more or less just asking for the property to transfer and the loan to transfer, if that, and sorry that did not come out very clearly earlier. But I think that's kind of what you're getting at, Ian, and hopefully that helps answer the why. Sorry about not getting that clearly out earlier.
Thank you, Lane. If the funds are gone, then that does obviate the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Keith, I see your hand up, and then Kathy, you're next.
Thanks, Cindy. My question actually was based off really what you guys were just talking about. I was curious where the funds have gone. Was it purchase of the dirt? And I remember from a long time ago, there was maybe a year ago, wasn't that long ago. There was a lot of land use kind of issues going on, and that hadn't been solved the last time I heard. So, is there a clear zoning path? And I guess so that's question number one, because that's what I remember about the site. And then number two, so if I understand it right, the land and whatever kind of entitlements that have been worked on so far are what the uses were for that money. I mean, is that correct, or did it go somewhere else? And then who owns now? And then the third question would be: does Hayden own everything? Basically, are they acquiring? Is this like, I forget how big a chunk of dirt this is, but are they acquiring it all via purchase from building partners, or is it just kind of a handshake kind of deal, and you're just taking over the project? Sorry for all the questions into one there, but
I'll address the land use issue. That will no longer be an issue if the council adopts the House Bill 2001 changes. And House Bill 2001 certainly addresses it. So even if the council doesn't adopt it, those land use issues will be addressed by the state statute itself.
thanks, Rachel.
Okay, who wants to tackle the remaining two questions from Keith?
Keith, this is Craig Smith with Hayden Homes. I just joined in as a panelist, and so I think I missed your second questions as I was converting from an attendee to a panelist. So maybe you could repeat those.
Yes. Okay. So I was just trying to figure out how this transfers actually working, Craig. So you guys would step in and purchase from building partners the dirt, and I was curious how that actually was kind of structured, and then are there any other hitches that you see that would prohibit you guys from meeting timelines? I guess. I mean, I'm just trying to think through Hayden's approach to this, because you're coming in. I really like the proposal. I mean, I would be completely supportive of it. We've got some tight timelines, and I'm just trying to vet out how everything's going to transfer, what roadblocks there are, and then is Hayden getting basically all that land kind of for free because everything's already been taken care of and paid for? And then if that's kind of true, that would help us understand some of the market sale splits with the affordable. So that was probably more than that second question landed, but you asked, so I'm sorry. I had to tell you.
Sure. So Hayden Homes currently has a purchase and sale agreement in place with building partners, in which we would be assuming the Affordable Housing Fund and also the Cdbg. As a byproduct of this transaction, the $110,000 Cdbg funds would be repaid back to the city, eliminating that, I believe it's August 2023 time constraint. It would be for the purchases for all 6.5 acres of the site. And then, as previously mentioned, I think one of the ways that we're looking at this is, I believe in the previous proposal, it was a total of 60 units, 60 to 62, I believe. What we're kind of working towards with the acceptance or approval from this committee is to really start to dig into that final design, but we're kind of got a range of what our numbers are. And that's really twofold. Number one, I had the opportunity to sit in on the last building partners neighborhood meeting and listen to the neighborhood concern, and there was concern about overall unit count and density. And so we're really trying to, in this proposal, address and listen to some of those concerns. Obviously, we're not going to be able to address 100% of all neighborhood concerns with a project of this nature, but trying to kind of find some areas where we can listen and hear and create an opportunity. So I think that answers the question, but let me present another one. The other piece to this is, with the underlying zoning and the amount of units that we're talking about and the affordability, we can accomplish this through a density bonus only. And so a lot of the zoning constraints aren't necessarily going to apply as we move forward with the range that we're looking at. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that was good, Craig. Thanks. That's, like I said, I'm always trying to see, trying to see the path forward, seeing how you're going to get there, because this one's been sitting for a while. So
understood.
Sounds like you're still working on the design, seeing what numbers actually work based off what you have there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I would just add one other kind of comment. The general design, as far as the street layout and stuff, is going to stay the same, just because how much time, effort, energy has already been into that. And it's a pretty linear site, and so there's only so many things that you can really do from a site plan and lot layout. So the general idea is probably going to be very similar. And I would just also say that once we have a site plan confirmed, we would like the opportunity to come back and show all of you kind of what that looks like, so you fully understand it.
Excellent. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Craig. Kathy, I see your hand up. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Craig, for that additional information. Megan, you've mentioned that you've had a great deal of success in delivering homes between here, Redmond, and Sisters at that 120% AMI mark. And I'm imagining in the market rate portion, you're kind of aiming in that direction. I guess I would feel more comfortable if what I understood your proposal, it's 40% will be in the 80 to 100%, and then the 60% will be market rate. And I just wish that part of that market rate was more targeted specifically to the 120%, knowing that you can probably get there. I guess you're not proposing that because of how volatile costs are and the amount of material costs and labor costs. I see Craig nodding his head. I guess, are you, because of the unit type and because of the consistency of the look throughout the whole site, I would imagine you're aiming it towards that market, but you're not willing to commit to that because of all of the variables that are involved. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, and Craig can chime in, and we were still very early in the process. And so a lot of that fine tuning, like Craig said, the site plan and you know, the pro forma number, the financials are still getting worked out. So it is still early, but like Craig said, we would be more than happy to come back and present those to you.
Well, I would love to see that. I've been very interested from the beginning because it's exactly the kind of work that I do, and so I understand what you're showing us. But I'm supportive of what you're proposing to do. I'm understanding it a little bit more during this discussion. Part of me wishes there was a commitment to do 120% for some percentage beyond the 100%. But if I'm the only one out here asking for that, then obviously it's moot. But at least it seems like that's your intention. And so, you know, I would be comfortable moving forward with this regardless. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I don't see any other hands up, but I have a question, and I think I know the answer. The 110,000 CDBG funds that need to be repaid, we do have a deadline there with HUD. If funds aren't spent, cities and jurisdictions can be penalized when that is not spent timely, which is why Rachel probably loses sleep sometimes, putting our funding projects and timelines together. And maybe this question is for Deb. What is your timeline to pay that 110,000 so we're not facing a penalty, because that's a big part of this project as well?
Megan, go ahead.
I'll chime in. The way the deal is currently structured is to close escrow on this transaction by the end of the year. And so it would be our intent at the end of the year when this transaction takes place that those dollars would be repaid to the city.
Thank you, Craig. That was all my questions. So I'm backing up a little bit. I think we're okay without doing a conflict of interest, but I would like to do a conflict of interest before we proceed any further. And Kathy, I just see your hand raised. Is that a new hand raise or?
It is. The question that I had, you brought it up to my mind with your question, was if we do get these funds back, can we use them or do they just go back to the government? Lynn is going to weigh in on that.
Yeah, so because these funds were already dispersed through an annual action plan, they're more or less gone. So this would be a direct repayment to HUD, more or less, so that they do not try to reclaim those funds directly from us in the future. So unfortunately, they won't be coming back through as program income to us. It would actually be directly to the federal government.
Which that's positive too. Keith, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, quick question. This is something I remember from a while back. Is I hope this isn't the case, but is the 450 that we're kind of talking about, is that going to pay off other like HUD responsibilities funds? Is it one's paying off others? Because some of them have been spent and we have to give them back. I hope you guys understand that question. That's probably a Lynn and Rachel question, because I remember a proposal a year or two ago that they were coming for extra funds to take care of funds that they had spent that they have to repay back. And so I'm curious if that's happening with the 450.
So the 450 plus the CDBG was spent on a combination of land acquisition and some initial planning work. So that's all been invested already. So any sort of repayment of the CDBG is going to have to come from either an additional affordable housing fund request or from private equity that Hayden happens to have, or something along that. I don't know exactly how you all are intending to finance that, so I'm kind of going out on a limb here, but cash in the bank or a new request to this group. It's not, there's no outstanding money that's sitting in a bank account anywhere.
Okay.
Is that, I think that answers, but in a weird way. Hopefully that got you.
I think so. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Keith, your hand is up. Did you have another question or just?
Sorry, I didn't pull it down.
Okay. I'm on it. I think without any additional questions, but before we have someone from the committee make a potential motion, I think I would like to do a conflict of interest statement from the committee members, and perhaps Elizabeth is sighing a little breath of relief, but I'm going to just go through the screen, and please state if you have a potential conflict of interest or an actual conflict of interest in this project. So Joanna, you are first on my screen, so I'll start with you.
I don't have any potential or real conflicts here.
Thank you. Matt Martino.
I have a potential in case any of the home buyers choose to use me for home purchase loans.
Keith Wood.
I have no potential conflicts of interest.
Kathy Austin.
Yeah, I have no real or potential conflicts of interest on this.
Heather Simmons.
I have no real or potential conflicts.
Allison Hohengarten.
I have no real conflicts. The only potential conflict is that our firm is a member of the Builders Association, but that's not even partners for affordable housing. So just throwing that out there. So there is no financial gain coming to me in any way, shape, or form from this proposal, to be clear.
Thank you. Ian Schmidt.
I do have a potential conflict of interest. The architecture firm that I work at provides design services. Projects like this tend to need design services, and there's a potential conflict that at some point in the future, I may be involved with one or various projects in these parcels. I have no awareness of that at this moment. I have no compensation coming to me for anything that may or may not be happening in the future that I'm aware of in any way, but it's a thing I should disclose.
Thank you, Ian. I think the last person is myself, and I can't foresee any actual or potential conflict of interest in the future for me. So thank you for going through that exercise. So with that, is there anyone on the committee that would like to propose or make a motion?
I'll jump in.
Thank you, Matt.
I move to approve a change of use of the 2016 Affordable Housing Funds awarded to building partners for the Woodside Court lot development and sale to affordable housing developers to a Hayden home purchase of the property and development of 19 to 22 affordable home ownership opportunities to households between 80 and 100% AMI.
All seconds.
We have Ian Schmidt, we have a second. Okay, so Matt Martino made a motion and Ian Schmidt seconded it. Is there any additional discussion or questions from the committee on the motion as stated? Ian, I see your hand raised.
I would like to echo my colleague Keith's and Matt's comments that I think this is an exciting project. I believe that providing ownership product in Bend is really, in many ways, the highest calling of this committee. And I'm very excited to see these projects moving forward with these kinds of products. It's wonderful for our city.
Thank you, Ian. Anyone else? I'm looking for hands raised, virtual or otherwise. All right, I don't see any additional comments, so I'll put it to the floor for a vote. So all in favor of the motion as stated, please raise your hand and I'll read your name for the record. Joanna Gardner, aye. Matt Martino, aye. Keith Wooden, aye. Kathy Austin is an aye. Heather Simmons, aye. Allison Hohengarten, aye. Ian Schmidt, aye. And Cindy King would be an aye. Thank you very much. Great questions. I mean, this has been an ongoing project and I'm excited to see what can come together. Thank you, Deb and Mandy and Craig, I think, for being here. Appreciate it very much. Appreciate your time. So with that, I think next on the agenda is staff report. So Lynn, what do you have for us?
So thanks everyone. I think we'll start with the county surplus discussion since y'all queued that up so nicely earlier on. So there was a joint council commission meeting. I always get tongue twisted when I'm talking about the Board of County Commissioners. Anyway, last week, and housing was the topic more or less on various levels, lots about sort of potentially authorized campsites, et cetera. But we also talked about the potential for a joint partnership on how we surplus land. And you all may know that a number of months ago, the mayor wrote a letter to each of the other taxing districts who own property within the city of Bend and asked them to come to the table with us to identify surplus parcels that could be used for development of affordable housing and or encampments of some sort. We got a really fantastic response from everybody. You all have heard, not only are we working with the county, but also with ODOT. Parks has also agreed to come to the table. There's a number of different other folks. So we're very slowly getting around to that. With the county, they identified a couple of potential parcels that could be, identified for the purposes of affordable housing. And so unfortunately, we didn't have a ton of time last week to talk through how the city does it, which is at cost with sort of this first right of refusal for affordable housing development. And you all know it's been a while since we put a property out, and that really comes down to staff capacity issues, but still continuing to work on it. And to be totally frank, every property that I've touched that has the potential to be surplus has some weird title issue that goes back to the early 1900s. Like, it's the strangest thing in the world. For some reason, like, these are not always the best parcels that everybody's rushing to buy. These are the remnants and the funky thing. And so there it is. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on all of them. But I have been in very close contact with the county property manager, Christy Bollinger, and we've been working very closely together on Veterans Village and other things, with that sort of being somewhat of a model of how we, the local governments, can come together to get solutions on the ground. So Christy and the County Commission have identified a surplus parcel, and we intend to use you all to vet RFP responses for that parcel, and then make a recommendation back to the County Commission for how that parcel should be disposed of. So for your purposes, ownership is just ownership. I think we'll have a little more info for you within the next couple of months on what that looks like. But you all will do what you do best, which is help us figure out the technical side of how to get housing built. And that is sort of our first step kind of to pilot whether this partnership makes sense between the county and city in terms of how we're disposing of surplus property. You know, what may need to happen differently, whether the county should have a comparable advisory body such as you. I mean, all sorts of big questions that I think we have the opportunity to sort of dip our toe in the water for. So Christy has been watching your meetings recently and is probably out there right now. And she and I are doing a lot of discussion to make sure that we can set this up appropriately. So the parcel that'll be coming to you is on the west side of Bend. It's approximately 7 acres. It is a funky one, like all of them, but has the potential definitely for a decent size amount of units to get put down. So know that at some point after we go through this process and you all determine based on the applications, you know, that there's somebody, let's hope, that can do a great job with this. Most likely staff will be looking for someone to go present that recommendation to the county commission. And you all can say what you choose to say at that time. So I've done a little bit of plugging. As you can tell, Councilor Campbell has done a lot of plugging, and I think our council will continue on that path. What's different about you all is that you have the technical expertise to talk about why. Whereas I think council and to some degree staff we're just not at the same level that you all are with your perspective and having lived this work before. So know that that is an opportunity that's upcoming. I'm very excited to bring this one to you all and see if we can help the county figure out how to do affordable housing on a little bit of a scale. That's really exciting to me. And also just to grow the partnership, because in my opinion, we have never worked closer in the last decade with the county than we are right now on a wide variety of housing and homeless issues. And so it's great to sort of start walking in the same direction with one another and see sort of where the path leads us all as we proceed. But wanted to let you know that's coming. We are hopeful to have this for you in the near future. And the process, just so you know, because it's been a while. The process is that staff working with electeds determine that there is a parcel that can be surplused. They will choose what to do with that, more or less. Christy has a copy of our most recent RFP for surplus property, so it'll look very similar for those of you who have seen that in the past, and you know, a lot similar to our Affordable Housing Fund RFPs as well. We will have a mandatory pre-application meeting as part of that process. That's going to be something that needs to happen in order to submit your application. That's really sort of speaking to the infeasibility of certain proposals that have come to us in the past and wanting to make sure that folks know exactly what they're working with, what the barriers may be, et cetera. Planning has already written up a brief memo on sort of considerations around this site and what folks need to know so that people have kind of a heads up before they're trying to design something for a pre-app. And then folks will come to you, you all will see the applications, they'll come to you and provide probably a brief overview, just like they do for funding. You all will deliberate, and then somebody's going to carry that recommendation to the county commission for discussion. At this point, the county commission has said that they intend to sell that parcel for market rate as well. To my knowledge, the county does not have requirements as such. That is a decision on their part at this time. And so one of the things that we've talked very briefly about is sort of how the city does it. And I think if you all have knowledge of how that could happen differently and why that's important, being one of the folks that brings that recommendation to the commission, you know, that's valuable information for them to have. Yeah. I think maybe I will leave it at that, but know that that is coming and you all will get the chance to weigh in on it and help them with that process with the next one.
Hey, Lynn, I just saw Kathy's hand raised. I wondered if I could have her ask you a question while you're on that topic, thinking that it might be on the topic that you're discussing. Kathy? Sure.
It is. It's a continuation of my earlier question as to whether the county was legally obliged to do that. It sounded for us in the city that it's not an arbitrary decision. It's something legally required to do at cost sale, but I don't know if that's really the case. And, you know, I would hope that at a minimum, the county could see the light of doing it the way the city does. So doing it at cost instead of market rate. but could you just clarify for me what the legal obligations are or not about that? Oh, it looks like
So
Elizabeth is
Elizabeth
gonna
just turned her
ask.
camera on, so she may have more information than I do.
I will defer to you, Lynn, on any specifics, but generally, Kathy, there are some state statutes about how public entities can sell land and what kind of process they have to go through. There may also be some restrictions based on whatever the funding was that the property was acquired with that might have to be repaid. But generally, I would say there's not a requirement to sell at cost.
So it's or on market rate either. Yeah, so it's not the same as the property on the Stevens tract where it was an
Correct.
educational fund that required,
Yes.
you know, market rate. So
Yeah,
so there is
state
some
property totally different. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So there is some discretion on their part, but there might have to be a little research, as Elizabeth just said, about how the property was acquired and if there needed to be some funding and associated with that. But
Let me just confirm, if it's okay, Kathy, is that I have not looked at what the commission's governing law is, I'll say. And so to my knowledge, they don't have a requirement, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist out there. It's just not something that I have discussed with anyone who said, yep, they have a requirement. Similarly with the city. Oh, go ahead.
Well, sorry, Lynn, that's exactly what I was just gonna jump in and say as well. I'm not familiar with the county code. There may be county code requirements that they placed on themselves for sale of property that they would have to follow. But I'm not aware of any. But I haven't looked at it.
Well, it's good. I mean, it's good that we have the conversation. Obviously, it's top of mind for me, especially what Barb has said. She had wished that they could have gifted that land, you know, to really find out and drill down what their options are. And I would hope at a minimum that they could do what the city does and at least do it at cost, because that's a huge difference in value between at cost and market rate. So, but also I'm really happy to hear it's on the west side. I live on the east side. I hear a lot about people saying, all the affordable housing's on the east side, and the previous projects that we were just discussing being on the east side. It's really nice to see that something is going to be on the west side. So thank you for that. And now I will shut up. Thank you.
The city is definitely an anomaly in choosing to sell at our cost. That's something I talk about with other cities all the time, trying to get them to do the same thing so that we get more housing really everywhere. But we are a little bit out of the box on that one, and that is because council chose to go that route and sort of create this process. It's not required by anyone outside of the city. Okay, anything else on that one before we go to the next topic?
Heather Simmons has her hand up.
I see Heather's hand up.
Thank you. And I just want to state I'm still very much on a learning curve with really fully understanding all of our funding tools and the equations. And I hope that this is understood as a really sincere question. I'm just looking for a little bit more education about how, you know, selling property at market value helps us with our affordable housing equation. And you know, I understand there's probably or could be a sizable delta between the city, you know's policy on providing land at cost and selling land at market value, and there's probably a range in between there. But can I just get a little bit more education on how this really helps us or the county, you know, put more affordable housing up? Thank you.
Great question. So I'm going to lead this off and then I will look at those. Keith, I'm looking at you if you want to jump in at the tail end, or really any other members of the committee who are in the weeds on this. Ultimately, one of the larger challenges that I hear from our developers or want to be developers in Bend, because not everybody can land here, is the lack of appropriately sized and zoned parcels for development. That's really the #1 challenge that folks are having right now. We have a great incentive structure. We have, you know, never enough financing, but it's a good start. The state has been doing a ton of work to make their financing be more functional and usable. And so I think a lot of the right pieces are in place. What's not there are chunks of land that have the appropriate zoning and are developable and don't have insane infrastructure needs that are the right size. And so, you know, for a 4% tax credit project, that is roughly 6 to 10 acres, sometimes a little bit on the higher end of that. For the 9% projects, you can go a little bit smaller, but finding, let's say, 7 acres of bare land with residential zoning anywhere in town right now is insane. It's just, there's nothing. I mean, there really isn't. And so, so we've done a lot of work to allow for siting of housing in commercial zones. That was the House Bill 3450 pilot that came through. There's now the state legislation that you all heard about a couple meetings ago, Senate Bill 8, which allows for affordable housing on commercial zones and to some degree industrial. And so we're working it in as many angles as we can, but even just having market rate, I'll say, is better than nothing. That said, by far, it is better to have an at-cost parcel, because what you all saw with the Housing Works change of use is exactly the same equation that happens in developing this land for affordable housing. It's just who's paying for it, who's filling that gap. So in that case, it's the city paying the 900,000 of the $1 million or so sales price. If it wasn't us, it would be coming from the state. It would be coming from potentially, you know, I know Housing Works has a fund set up, but not everybody is so fortunate. It would be coming from the feds, et cetera. And so it's kind of like, you know, this is the cost of development, and this is the cost that you can get back from the revenue and rents. Somebody's got to fill that gap. And so it's just a matter of figuring out who that is. In this case, it was us. In other cases, it's somebody else. I don't, that's
Lynn,
again, oversimplification, but
I was going to comment a little bit more on that, Heather, just so you understand too, that the length of time it takes for us to circle financing, most private landowners are, if they want to sell it, they're going to sell it to whoever can show them the money the fastest, right? And so in theory, you know, if the county is looking for a project that kind of checks all their boxes, they'll probably enter into a longer deal with them, and they'll wait, they'll be patient. Where you hear time and time again that just a private landowner wants to capitalize on the market right now and doesn't want to wait potentially a year and a half to see something come in for them. So that's you know, the market price isn't great, because if it's too expensive, it doesn't work, right? But you know, you'd have to go grab a lot of extra subsidy to pay for it. But that goes back to Lynn's point of someone's paying for it somewhere. so that's
Keith,
what I wanted to add.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Is it still true, I don't know if this is still true or if it's just a rumor I heard, that there is a point allocation given if you can secure in the state funding competitions, if you can secure land for below cost? Is that true, or am I making that up?
You know, they change it too much to know if that's true or not. I mean, there is a question. There is a question in there that talks about, hey, what discounts, rebates, what do you bring into the party, basically? How much work have you done, you know, and who are your partners that are helping out? That is something that they do ask. Now, where do they, you know, in their mysterious ways of scoring things, actually assign a point to that or not? I'm not sure, but they change it all the time.
Thank you.
Heather, I just have two things, and then Barb, I see your hand up. So Heather, I've been on this committee, I think, since early 2017, and I'm still learning things. So be patient with yourself. There's a lot to take in. And then I just wanted to tag on, you know, being a realtor for 25 years, some bare land, not all bare land is just ready to go. And not all owners want the highest dollar. Not all owners get the highest dollar, because once due diligence is done, some deals fall apart because there's huge problems with a parcel. So I always want to remind people that not all properties sell at the top dollar. There's a lot of other things that come into play, and sometimes you don't know it until you get into for no pun intended, you get into the weeds on a vacant property, and it can get pretty ugly pretty fast. I just want to throw that out there. Barb, you have the floor.
Thank you. That's so nice of you. I thought I would also mention, Heather, that's just such a good question. We had one lot that was near the property that we own on 9th Street. And the neighbors came to council. I live on the east side, and the neighbors came to council and said, oh, we've been using this piece of property like it was our own for years. And oh, please, can't we have an opportunity to buy it? And, you know, we knew that there was no way to sell it to anyone specific. We would just have to put it on the market. And I was the one who advocated that, well, maybe we'll do this. And because the money would go into the Affordable Housing Fund. And, you know, and oh, these poor citizens, and it's the East Side, and let's do it. Well, we had a realtor advise us on the piece of property. We put it on the market for $85,000. It sold like almost immediately. It did not sell to the neighbors because once they realized just how much it was going to cost to have the piece of property where they've been parking their boats or whatever, you know, they were not the ones who ended up. The people who bought it flipped it, resold it like a month later. It was a few weeks later for 30% more. They sold it for $115,000 just a month after we had sold it to them for $85,000. So, you know, that was just such a learning experience for me about how it's all about property in Bend, and there's just no available property in the first place. And if there is, we can't buy it for $85,000. And, you know, I'll go out, this is me out on a little bit of a limb, that I don't know if there's any realtor that can tell you what a piece of property is worth. It's just, you know, kind of this impossible thing when there is no property and values are skyrocketing. And, you know, we had professional advice and we still just were taken to the cleaners on that one specific one. So I appreciate your question. It's such a good question. It's why I'm so frustrated with the county is, you know, that amount of money in their hands. What are they going to do with that? There's no place, you know, in my opinion, it should stay in Bend. The property's in Bend. It should continue. That money should be spent in Bend. But that $1 million is nothing compared to, again, what you all can do with $1 million in our fund. So thank you for the question. And yes, this work is so hard and so many things to learn. So thanks, Cindy, for the time. Thanks everybody for the time. It's a great conversation.
And it sounds like y'all have an audience with Councillor Campbell if you want to scheme further. So in the meantime, if it's okay, Chair, I'll carry on.
Yes, continue.
Wanted to let just very quick update on the navigation center. So we had some really phenomenal applications that came back in, or responses, I should say, to the RFQ, request for qualifications. We are reopening that just very briefly for, I think, this week, for about a week, I want to say, just to make sure that we got everybody. Next stage after that is RFP, which is actually determining location and actual operator of the navigation center. So that'll be coming out in the near future. Let's see, House Bill 2001 had a work session a week ago. It's all blending together, I'm sorry. I think it was last week. But there's a lot of public meetings going on, and council does intend to have a public hearing next week. I believe we have both Kathy Austin and Ian Schmidt on the line to testify as needed. I'll double check with both of you all. If anything has changed, Ian and Kathy, let me know, and I'll try to solicit some volunteers from this group. If you can't make
I'll be
it.
there.
Okay, we got two, good.
Yeah, we're good.
And then with that, I'll hand it to Rachel for the allocation process update, and to talk, you talked about Council on Aging already, so.
Yep, so we are, gearing up for the next allocation round of funding for CDBG and Affordable Housing Fund. And we have new kind of case management system software through Neighborly. So I will be sending you all like a schedule, but I'm coordinating with Neighborly because that schedule will include them training you on how you will be reviewing the applications or proposals in their system software. So everything this year with regards to the RFP will be electronic. And so all the applications will be electronic and online for you to review, and your review process will be all electronic and reviewed online. So I'm just putting that out there. I will be sending you emails in the very near future about dates and trainings and timelines for our next allocation rounding process.
And then just a quick reminder that we will have regularly scheduled meetings. There was some weirdness with invites. I don't know what happened, but yes, normal time, normal place for the foreseeable future for AHAC meetings. So ignore anything that looked like it was way out of left field. We don't know what happened, and apologies if that was on our end. But yeah, should be good to go with normal October and November meetings and onward from there. So let us know if you don't have invites for some reason to the regular meeting, and we'll get you that, but hopefully the ones from Gina are coming through now. So with that, Rachel, Amy, anything that I forgot? Okay. With that, Chair, I think that's it for the staff report.
Great. Well, that is the last item on our agenda. If there's no additional business or any further comments, I will, oh, Kathy, you have your hand raised, as does Campbell. So, okay, hold that thought. Kathy, you have the floor.
Well, I just wanted to mention that Lynn and I have worked together to put on a program through City Club. It's this month, and it is on the 16th at noon, and it's free, it's online, and it's about how we can provide affordable housing. We're going to have some great speakers, and I just wanted to, Lynn, I hope you don't mind that I'm mentioning this. I just want to invite everyone to tune in if you'd like, or if you know anybody who has a lot of questions and doesn't quite understand how this all works and what the heck is affordable housing, you can direct them to the City Club for this on the 16th at noon. So that's all I just want to say. Oh, and I'll be the moderator.
You're lucky chosen one. Great. Thank you for doing that, Kathy. Barb, you have the floor. Counselor Barb, sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Kathy. That'll be great. I was just going to say that the mayor and Rita and I interviewed applicants for this committee. And as usual, we had so many great applicants that we, ended up thinking, what do we do with this person? So we do have, I think at this point, it's still a recommendation, and it will be official at our next meeting, which is next Wednesday. So I will just leave you with that teaser that, but they mostly, anytime I get the microphone, it's thank you to everyone for your amazing, amazing work. You are literally saving lives, and I just appreciate you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Counselor. That's awesome. All right. Any other comments? I don't want to sign off if anyone has anything additional. I think we're good. So the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your time. We'll see you next month. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.